there guys, and welcome back to part 2 of my rock demolition animation. In the first part we created this quite simple but really cool destruction using Rayfire and 3ds Max. And in this part we're actually going to texture, light, and I'll show you the beauty of Octane render. So the first thing we kind of want to do is give it some basic texture, and I also just want to increase this to maybe like 1000 by 1000, just so we have a kind of larger plane to work on. And if we press M, we can actually bring up our materials. Should be able to. There we go. So here we have our materials, and I'll kind of just show you over some of the basic Octane materials. So we have a diffuse, a glossy, a specular. So we have basically just a flat colour, a reflective material, and a glass. And we also have a mixed material. So if you want something to be not as glossy, but you want it to have a bit of colour to it, you can actually plug in a glossy and a diffuse, and then you have the option here to kind of play between them. So if you want it completely diffused or completely glossy, you can go between them. And this is great for things like car paint and things. But for this tutorial, I'm actually going to use some preset materials that come with Octane. So if you have Octane render, you need to set it up. So you need to assign the renderer down here. For production we have Octane, which is selected here, and there's no active shade menu for Octane, but the material editor will be Octane as well. And when you've done all that and assigned the renderer, you should have a few settings here. So for this, I'm quickly going to put on low priority. Basically, you can make it so it doesn't use a huge amount of your GPU, as it's a GPU renderer. And if you set it to low priority, then it'll take longer to render, but your whole computer will run a lot smoother. And then when you come to actually rendering it, you just check that off, click apply and render, and it's kind of 4 or 5 times quicker. Then the next thing we need to do is set up the render width. So I'm going to use 1280 by 720, and we also need to set that up in our common setting. So you can just go down here to HDTV 1280 by 720, and you can use the command Shift F, and that'll actually constrain your viewport to that aspect ratio, so you can frame it a lot better. And then the next thing we need to do is go into our Octane render settings and click on Open Live Database. And this is where you'll find a lot of textures which are just fantastic to use. So I'm going to go into our stone texture, and you can see here, if I can, we have hundreds of textures here, just ready to use, and most of them are pretty incredible. These will be using kind of texture maps, and these are all just built into Octane. They ship with it, so you can kind of see we have all these different types, and I can't remember which one I went for. But I believe it could be that. So if we open up our material editor and go to our compact view, you can see we have them blank here. And if we click place to active slot in material editor, it takes a little second to all load in. But in a second we should, yep, here you go. We now have our stone wall here, If we go back to our slate, we can just delete them. We can actually drag that in, and you can see how this is made. So you can actually see, you can go in here, you can have a look how it's all set up. As you can see, it's using different glossy materials and a mix editor to create something which is really impressive. And if you're new to learning Octane, this is a great way to kind of just see how things are set up. So now that that's done, what we can do is actually select everything in our scene, like so, as I did actually give everything the same texture, so we'll do that in here, and then right click on our material and assign material to selection. Now if we have a little look at what this looks like, we can open up our Octane viewport, and it is completely black. That's because we don't have any lights or anything. But before I do anything, I'll show you kind of, in Cinema 4D you might be used to putting everything to kind of cubic mapping and everything, and it took me a little while to work out where this all was. But under our modifier section, so the second tab along with our box selected, we can go down, go to UVW Map, and we can just click box, and I'm just going to click flip on all of these and set the tiles to maybe 4. We can go back and change all this later, but this is the equivalent of repeating your texture, as we want a bit of detail as we'll be close. And then if we select everything else except for that, so clicking Alt, under this modifier list we'll add that again, change it to box, and we'll put this to maybe 3, and again obviously we'll check this back later. So the next thing to do will be to get an idea of lighting. So we're going to go over to our lights tab, and we need to use the Octane lights, and for this all I used was a daylight scene, so just click and drag, and yeah, I did that the wrong way around, so let's just do that again. Zoom out, daylight, click where you want the target to be. No, again that was wrong. Click where you want the sun to start, and then where you want your target to be. And then when we go back, you can see we have a sun, and here we have a target. So we're just going to drag this up and out, and this is literally all I use to light the scene. If we go back to our modifier tab, you can kind of see the different settings for the sun. But next we need a camera. So the easiest way to do this is to go over to our camera tabs. Again, we need a Octane camera. Click on the camera, drag anywhere in your scene and press Ctrl C, and what that's going to do is put it exactly where your viewport was. So now you can see it's kind of in the wrong place, and this is kind of where I don't really like 3ds at all. So we just need, the camera settings are a lot worse to work with in my opinion. So we may have got the sun in the wrong place. You can use P to get out of your camera and go in perspective mode. Yeah, so I want my sun more to the right of where the destruction's happening, so around here. And we'll just use some of the settings down here to kind of zoom out. And now when we go into our Octane settings, we can see I've definitely got bad tiling on the floor and on our just everywhere basically. So we can go back in here, maybe change this to like 30, so something crazy high, and we'll see what we get there. And the good thing about Octane is if I just shrink this down, we can actually simply move around with our camera and it auto updates in more or less real time. And remember, this is using the low priority, so you can imagine what high priority would be. So I may have got the wrong texture, so I might go and quickly see what one I used if I just navigate to where I had it before and kind of guess what day of the week it was. Is it 60? Yeah. Okay. So we go into our materials. So I used rock grey blue. Can I just delete that and it'll delete everything else? Yeah, okay. Hopefully, nice. It kept the material. So, if we select, as there should be, if we go back to our compact one, select by material, we can select everything that has our texture, which is technically everything. We can just apply that texture to it instead, and this will look a bit better. Yeah, so this is a texture I used in the other one. In my opinion, it looks a lot nicer. So that is still from the same live database as before. So if you pick the one I used, then you can always just try and find it. This one is called Rock Grey Blue, and I'm pretty sure I didn't change it at all. So here we have our scene, and we can play through. It all looks good. So we can get a bit of camera movement in here, and it works. Oh, we got another camera in now. Oh, we have. Is that the old animation? Yeah, so that is actually our old animation. So we can kind of go in and delete all this. Hopefully I can get an angle where I might not select anything else. Here we go. Right, and then I'll just deselect. Right, so now we're actually back to our original animation, and we kind of want to start it looking up at our ball. But we do want it to land here, because we like that. So we're actually going to set a keyframe on our camera target. So we're going to use auto key and lock that in. Then we can kind of look up, where's that go? So you can kind of see, here we go. And as we're using auto key, we can just kind of drag this along and kind of move around until we get a nice flowing animation all the way to the end. And just drag that out. And that's looking pretty good. So what we can do is actually just simply roll the camera And again, if we turn off auto key, we can adjust that without changing anything else. And that's just how I got that slight slant. It's all just on a flat plane, but I just rolled the camera around so we got a bit of a nicer look to it. So here we have our basic animation and camera. Next we want to do is get that incredible depth of field which Octane delivers effortlessly. So we need to go into our camera settings, close that, and then under aperture I'm going to increase that to maybe 4. You can see we get this almost real-time depth of field, which, let's expand this, which if I use this autofocus tab, I can literally click anywhere on my scene that I want to focus on and it'll focus on it. So what's good about this is the fact that all I need to do is go up here where it's focused, click on that, set an auto key here, and then I might need to just go here. So now we actually have some keyframes coming. When it's here, we just click on our object again. Down here, we just click randomly and it'll actually change the focus and keyframe the focus distance and keep going. The only annoying thing about Octane is it doesn't update the animation in the viewport, so as you can see when I'm playing here everything's frozen in time. It moves the camera but not the objects, and you just got to click update geometry as you do this. So we go along maybe here, then at the end when everything's kind of settled in, we'll just click here, and now we can just kind of go in and change everything up to how we like. So liking this, I don't want to change it too abruptly, so just make sure your keyframes aren't literally 1 frame apart and you'll be fine. And now we can just kind of fine tune this using the camera settings. So maybe we want a slightly larger vignette. I want to bring the saturation, in fact before you do any of this, this is where you can muck up quite a lot. If you're changing the settings now, make sure you turn auto key off, otherwise you'll be keyframing things like the vignette. So now that auto key's off, we can just kind of go up here, make a bit more of a vignette. We can bring the saturation down so we get a bit of a nicer kind of black and white image. I'll bring it up a little bit. We can increase the exposure. As you can see, this is all just working in more or less real time. It's just so easy to kind of fine tune this. We can even use the post-processing tools and get some kind of glare going if we want to kind of fill in some of the darker areas. This will actually, if it's looking at the sun, you'll actually get like a nice kind of flare glow. And yeah, we can increase the aperture edge, which I believe is a bit like chromatic aberration. Change the field of view if we want. We can even get like a nice kind of dramatic impact. So if we start it, the field of view out here, turn on auto key and set key, and then just keep that the same there. Then when it impacts, we'll narrow the field of view right down. So now we'll actually get a kind of dramatic zoom. So you can see going down, in, and panning down, and you're just creating this super easy animation, which you can see how quickly you can just change the focus to any part that you want. go forwards. Now that we change this zoom, we might need to just go through a few of our keyframes, making sure it's fine at every point. So keep going here, change that, see what we're like here. That's nice, and you're getting this really nice realistic depth of field, and this render's taking like 6 seconds to kind of close in on something just incredibly nice. It'll keep going until it's done 16,000 samples, which is far too much really. So under the Octane settings, we can change this down to maybe 400, and then when we kind of just play through, it'll stop after 14, so it's saying it's going to take 20 seconds a frame, which is just incredible for the detail. And again, this is on low priority, so high priority I might be able to just take it off here. So if we play through now, it might not go much faster because I'm not sure if the viewport's affected by it or if we've crashed Octane. Okay, so now it's taking 11 seconds, but you can see it kind of, you get a bit worried that it's going to crash. So you can see now we've set up all of our settings. The next thing to do is activate our rendering, so we want active time segment. Make a new folder called tutorial render, and we'll just call this rock smash, and we'll save it as, I'll just put a JPEG sequence because we're not bothering with anything special, and we're saving the files, everything's fine. And yeah, and then all we need to do is turn on high priority, save our scene, and click render. And we'll kind of have a quick look at just how quick this is taking. So 1 frame's done, 2, 3, and if we go to our settings, you can see we have all of these here. So this is saying that this entire animation is going to take 7 minutes. And I'll just kind of wait until it's got to a stage where we're seeing some of the smash. It might take a bit longer as soon as we actually get the smash because there's more geometry, more detail, more depth of field. But I'll kind of... yeah, I shall stop the recording now and come back to you when it's done, and we can kind of see what we have. So as you can see now, after about 12 minutes I think it was, we have this 3 seconds of animation, which is by no means perfect, but you can just see how quickly and easily you can make this pretty awesome animation, and like the depth of field is just so nice. There we are. So you can see we have this just beautiful animation. We have kind of bokeh coming out in the background, and this is done, like each frame is taking kind of like 10 to 12 seconds to render at most. And to get that kind of quality out of a render in that little time with just one graphics card is just crazy. Imagine having 4 or a complete studio of graphics cards. This would be instant. So this is basically the tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it, and to the kind of hardcore 3ds Max users, I'm so sorry. I'm sure watching it was painful, trying to watch me go along everything, because I can't use it really, but you can just create these amazing animations just with one light, some text, some basic texture, and some pretty cool plugins. So I hope you've enjoyed this and learnt something, and if you haven't tried 3ds, then try it and go through the painful navigation and slow progress that I went through. So thanks for watching, guys. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment below. If you want to see more, then suggest anything you want, because I want to do more tutorials. And yeah, have a great day everyone, and I'll see you later.